All right. New immigration rules in Singapore, right? If you earn over $250,000 a year, Singapore wants you. A new flexible 5-year work visa for foreigners making at least 30,000 Singapore dollars a month. The latest plan to attract high earners and high-end people. Prime Minister Lee says the latest initiative targets high-paid workers around the world and professionals to bring them into Singapore. Is this going to solve our labor issues or help with our labor issues currently in Singapore, Steve?
Well, look, there's two things that Singapore needs to address. One is that Singapore is in a war for global talent. Singapore is
and has been for years, right?
And it's getting more. Everybody is always, but it's getting more intense. And part of the reason is that you have technology which now allows you to be based anywhere, so you don't have to have all of your people in one place. So that's one change. Another change is, and this was the Minister of Manpower said this in his remarks, is that we're in an era where business follows talent as much as talent follows business. So where the talent is going to locate is where the business is going to locate. It used to not be that way. If a business said our headquarters is in Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever it was, you had to go there if you were talent. It is now the other way around. And business always needs certainty. Just, kind of one of the rules. We don't care what the rules are. Just tell us what the rules are. Don't change them so that we can follow them. And this is the clearest that we've seen out of Singapore, which says if you meet this criteria, 30,000 a month, we're going to give you a 5 years. So it's not going to have to be something that maybe it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. We're going to give you 5 years, and you can stay, and you don't have to compete it out with Singaporeans. You don't have to advertise it. So this is something that Singapore has to do, because it's not about Singapore. I mean, it's about where Singapore is competing globally.
Yeah. I mean, does this have the trickle down effect? Sound like Reagan now, but does it have the trickle down effect that you would think? Because it does seem like this is a very niche Bloomberg-y kind of story. It effectively caters to only 5% of expatriate workers in the city-state. If you talk to small businesses in Singapore, business owners generally, they're not so concerned about that visa. They want people in their restaurants. They want people in their bars. They want people in their... I mean, if you go to any restaurant, cafe, bar, small business in Singapore, you will see a banner outside saying staff needed now, $2,000 a month, blah, blah, blah. They can't get the staff. Is this a visa that's going to really resonate with the average Singaporean, much less care? And broadly, what impact really economically, put it in layman's terms, what kind of impact economically is this going to have on Singapore?
Okay, who is this apply to? Right, it applies to investment bankers. Right. It applies to private bankers. It applies to partners at international law firms,
tech entrepreneurs or whatever.
Yeah, less so of the expats. Less so there. I mean, right, senior executives of big multinationals. That is who it's going to apply to. Now, the theory is if you have a private equity firm here, which only maybe they have 30 employees, but the private equity firm, they need lawyers, they need accountants, they need consultants, they need PR firms. And so, yes, it is going to help, attract those people. And who aren't going to necessarily be making 30,000 a month. And then they go to restaurants, and then, so there is going to be some trickle down. Now there is, there's a balancing act here, because, Singaporeans may say, well, look, I want to be in those roles. And it used to be
they will say that.
It used to be that at least this was open for competition. Now you could just bring in a foreigner without opening it up for competition. If you pay 30 a month or more, what is that going to do to the middle to upper end Singaporean managers in these types of firms? Is this going to block them a bit more? So I think that's one thing that the people here in Singapore are watching. But it is something that Singapore, I think, had to do. And another interesting piece that was in this law is that it now explicitly allows the spouses of these employment pass holders to work. Singapore took that right away. They took away the right under a letter of consent, yes, for a spouse of an employment pass holder to work. They're reinstating it for these workers. I hope they reinstate it for a broader amount of workers. So Singapore is doing more than just putting in this limit, and it is going to have to be balanced a bit, but it's something that Singapore had to do because it's in a global war for talent.
Steve, we do have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in today. Interesting stuff. We'll keep an eye definitely on that and these other stories as well. Have a good week.
You too, and see you all. And I just want to say one thing: there is good news for Neil in this law, because it says you don't have to meet the threshold if you have outstanding achievements in the arts and culture. Now, I don't know if children's book count, but I think I would make the argument it does.
I would like to think I've made a more positive contribution to some of these bankers, but that's for others to decide.
Here we
See you
go.
next
Thanks.
week.
Thanks, Steve.
International News Review